everybody, this is Tracy here with another edition of A View from Tracy's Point, and we are going to do something a little different tonight. I recapped movies before, but I haven't done a review of a book. And so this is the first book that I have read in probably like 5 years because I've been in school, and after you get through reading all that crap, the day be throwing at you and writing all them papers and carrying on. You don't want to pick up another book and read. But I think I pointed out to you guys before, I have all these books that I done bought that I am going to read. I actually have a whole lot more of these, but Viking Publishing was sending me books a few years ago for new releases that they had, and they wanted me to review, and I got behind on those, and so they stopped sending me books. So I have a stack of those in my to be read pile, but these are all books from my favorite authors, and they've all come out with new releases over the past year or two, and so I've been buying the books but not finding the time to read them. But I picked up the first book and I read it, and I actually started reading because I went to Miami with my daughter last week, and so she was driving on the way back, and so I took out the book and started reading it. Couldn't put the book down. Finished the book Sunday morning, I think it was. So this book is An American Marriage. It's by Tayari Jones. She has several other books, and I've actually read all of her books. I think I have about, she did Leaving Atlanta, the Silver Sparrow. And it was also selected for Oprah's book club. And I have to give this disclaimer that I was not given the book by the author. No one is paying me for this review. I bought this book with my own money. Okay, so I am doing this out of the pleasure of reading and not with any indication that I'm going to receive something in return, or expectation that I'm going to receive something in return for reviewing this book. And then I also want to let you guys know that there will probably be some spoilers that I'm going to give out. So if you haven't read the book, you might want to turn the video off now because I'm probably going to tell a lot about this book. So the fact that I couldn't put the book down and that I read the book, I started the book Friday coming home, read it the entire drive. Then I think I did put it down when we got home because we had a lot of stuff to do. Read it all day Saturday because I was so exhausted from my trip to Miami because we went to the Miami Open tennis tournament. And then I finished it off in about an hour or two on Sunday. I don't know if I'm going through change in life, but this book was so emotional and I was crying. And I mean, it was like times when I stopped and said, why are you crying? Like, it's not that serious, but it was just, oh my God, it was like tugging at my heartstrings. So the premise of the book, An American Marriage, is that a couple meets in college, and then they run into each other later on down the road, just happenstance that they, at the same place at the same time. They end up getting married. They were married for a little over a year, I think it was. And there was kind of like some hints to possible infidelity. The guy said, no, it wasn't infidelity, that he basically was getting women's phone numbers or whatever just to make himself, feel important. And so it was like so many themes in the book, and I might be wrong on all of them, but I think the essence of the book was basically that women sacrifice so much of themselves for the men in their lives, and that when we do decide to make our own decisions and to live for ourselves and to find our own happiness, is usually at the expense of somebody else. And then we end up in this tug of war as to whether we're going to honor what's in our own spirit or whether we're going to follow somebody else's lead. And so the main character Celestial, but her husband called her Georgia. But it was like Celestial Georgiana or something like that. But he called her Georgian. And so basically, she was a free spirit. She was an artist. She had dreams for the future. And he inserted himself into her dreams that he was going to help her reach these goals, and she wanted to make dolls and do some other kind of artwork and become like a world famous artist. And so he was thinking more on the level of, let's open up a store and you can sell your stuff. And then I thought it was really weird because the dolls that she made, they kept making reference to the fact that the dolls all looked like him. So they had been married for a little over a year. They were going to visit his parents. So they lived in Atlanta. The parents lived in a small town in Louisiana. And when they were on their way, she just got like this weird feeling that something bad was going to happen. And she wanted to turn around and go back home. Like if you turn around and go back home, does that stop the bad thing from happening? Probably not. But he said, no, you're just nervous, because she didn't think that his mom liked her. So they end up going to Louisiana, and he basically wanted to tell her his story, his history, things about himself that he had never shared with her before. But then, as fate would have it, a situation broke off, and he ended up going to jail for 12 years. So she tried to hang in there with him for the first couple of years, and then she was like, I'm not cut out for this. I'm not doing time with you. And you guys, if you haven't seen my video, it's one of my A View from Tracy's Point shorts, where I basically talk about my two oldest daughters. Their father is actually incarcerated from now on, and how the day that he the day that he was sentenced was the last interaction that I had with him, and that was 25 years ago. I've never talked to him on the phone, never been to visit him in prison. No communication whatsoever. And I'm just that type of person. And so I was so feeling her in this situation, but for different reasons, because I remember somebody had made a post on Facebook, and this probably was about 6 or 7 years ago. This was before I learned not to argue with people on Facebook, because I did a post about that. But basically somebody made a post and they were saying, like, would you, if your mate went to prison, would you stay with them or would you leave them? And so we got into this big argument about people being in, no, I take that back. That's not what it was about. It was about if somebody you love went to prison, would you support them? So it wasn't necessarily about husbands or mates. And so I was sharing the story about, I'm not doing time with you. Bottom line. And how, I told my kids, like, if you go out there and do something stupid and go to jail, please don't waste your one phone call calling me, because I'm not coming. And I can remember having a block on my phone when they had the house phones. Everybody have cell phones now. But the house phones, you could actually put a block on your phone where people that can't call you from any type of prison system, from the county jail or anything. I said, so don't waste your one call on me, because I ain't coming, because I raised you right, blah, blah, blah. And so this girl came at me. And she was like, every time I done been to prison, my mom has been there. She done came to visit me every weekend, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, listen to what you just said. Every time I went to prison, my mom was there supporting me along the way. Did it ever occur to you that if your mom didn't support you the first time, there wouldn't have been every time? Because you would have learned your lesson, you would have felt isolated, you would have had time to think, like, maybe this ain't the life that I'm trying to live. And when I tell y'all, that girl read me for filth, okay? But I was not standing down, and the other people was joining in, like, oh my God, you're a horrible mother that you wouldn't support your kids. And I'm like, but when you teach your kids right from wrong and they decide to go out there and do wrong, I said, now, if my children are in a situation where they're falsely accused, which was the case in this book, then yeah, I would be there. I would be fighting for my child 100%. But if you're out there doing something that you know is wrong, I can't help you. And that was the thing with my kid's father. Like, you knew what you was doing was wrong. Like, I didn't want no part of that. So no, I'm not gonna give up my life. I'm not giving up my weekends. I'm not flying to another state to visit you. I'm not getting on the road, getting on the bus, not gonna be violated and all of this stuff. Like, it is crazy. So one of the conversations that came up in that Facebook post was a lady inboxed me, and she was like, her husband was serving time, but he was her husband. They had several kids, and she had created this life for her and her kids where that centered around her husband being in prison. Now, her husband had committed a crime, but she said that it was to death do us part. She wanted the kids to have a relationship with the father, and she was trying to explain that situation to me, and I was just like, no, 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 I'm not doing it. So I understood how Georgia felt about, I done tried to hang here with you and putting some money on your books. I'm gonna go see about your mom and them, but no, I can't do it. And I think that was why the book touched me so much, because you do kind of feel, not that often, but over the 25 years, there have been a couple of times where I'm like, God, am I an awful person for not, supporting this person while he's in jail? But, as quickly as the thought came, it kind of went away. And then his mom died while he was in prison, which got me to thinking again about my kid's grandmother, because she died like 3 or 4 years ago. And how she got 2 sons that's in prison that weren't able to be here to see their mom off. I was emotionally invested in the husband's story. Roy was his name. I was emotionally invested. So the premise of the book is that Georgia had a friend that she grew up with, and I guess they were destined to be together, but she was dealing with the situation of her husband being in prison for something he didn't do and following her dreams. And then the family members started drawing lines in the sand and telling her that, she wasn't being a good wife, and that, here you got a black educated man who did everything right, but the system still screwed him in his behind. Like, the last thing he needed is for his wife to leave him, and her parents were rich and they actually was paying for his legal bills. And so had that whole dynamic going on. So now we're wondering, okay, so now you got this black woman who's a free spirit, can't follow her dreams. Add to that the complexity of the family telling her, like, this is a black man, black men have it so hard, they got to go up against the system. How dare you leave him in his time of greatest need? Another thing that I found myself having in common with Georgia was that even though Roy was locked up, her life continued on, and she was able to do the things that she wanted to do. Her dad helped her start the store that her and Roy had talked about. She made national news. She was well known and everything. And so she was invited to speak somewhere. And Roy's mom gave him the story that had appeared in Jet or Ebony or Essence, one of the black magazines. And so he noted that in the story, in the interview, she never mentioned him. And I could relate to that, because, like, who goes around telling people that somebody that close to you has gone to prison or that they're in prison? And so I was so angry with Georgia, though, because I'm thinking, your husband's in jail. He's been wrongly accused of a crime. They're asking you, what is your inspiration for the dolls? Because the doll that she had won a claim for was actually, she had taken the clothes off, and I'm not going to tell you the whole story about the doll because it had like a deeper meaning to it, but she had put a prison uniform or a prison outfit on the doll. And so they were asking her, like, what was the meaning behind that? And I'm sitting there saying, girl, this is your opportunity to tell these people that your man down there in Louisiana in jail done been wrongfully accused of a crime and get national attention for him. But she didn't mention him. She never mentioned the husband or anything. And that's when Roy first started realizing that, she may have been ashamed that she had moved on. And so when he confronted her about it, she was like, well, it wasn't the time or the place, and I would have lost my credibility or whatever. They just would have seen another black woman supporting a black man in prison or whatever. And so I was really angry with her at that point. But then I got to thinking, like, I don't never tell people, that my kid's father is in jail. And I know through the years, there are people that under the guise of friendship, constantly like, well, where are your kids? Where's their dad? Blah, blah, blah. Here you talk about your youngest daughter's father, but where is the other girl's father? And so just like he doesn't live here, like, and then as I become closer to people, I tell them the story. And then there were people who knew me from growing up and knew what the story was. But when you meet new people, and probably about 6 months ago, there was somebody who asked the question, and they had asked the question several times. And finally, I just thought, he's in prison. And then they were like, oh, and then I kind of felt relieved at that moment, because then it was like, now what do you want to know? And so I shared that with a friend of mine named Dominique on Facebook, and she was like, isn't it liberating? Like, did it make you feel good to just finally say that? And then did you ask yourself afterwards, why did you not tell this person? Like, you've known this person all these years. Why did you not tell the person? And I was like, I think it was just, I don't know, it was a mixture of things, but more so because I was annoyed that she kept asking. And because I think when people keep asking you questions, it's because deep down inside they already know the answer. They just want to know if you're going to tell them the answer. And so I think that in my personal situation, in Georgia's situation, it was different, a little different, but the same altogether, because it's like, it's not your secret. It's not your story to keep a secret. It's somebody else's story, and it's really not a reflection on you. But in her case, I think telling the story, she could have helped somebody else. And so her uncle was the lawyer, and he was doing the appeals and everything. And so they finally get him out. But by then, he hadn't heard from her in like 2 years. So he kind of knew in his mind what was really going on. And so he had to determine whether or not he was just going to start his life over in Louisiana and forget about her. But of course, we all need closure. So he decided to go to Atlanta to get an answer from her and see what was going on. And it was just a lot of complexities. And I told y'all a lot about the story, but there was a lot I didn't leave out for those of you who didn't read the book. So you'll go read the book and find out the other things that happened in the book. But I think on a scale of 5 stars, I would definitely give it like 4.5 stars, because there were like some elements that I felt were missing, that I kind of needed to, fill in some of the gaps. But overall, it was a good book, and I highly recommend it. And so that's my review of An American Marriage. It was a good book, full of complexities, full of what would you do, life moments. How do you feel about women? Do you feel like women sacrifice a lot for the people in their lives, and we forsake our hopes and our dreams for the future? I thought that the question with her and the friend that she grew up with, who ended up being like a part of the love triangle that was created. And that part took me to a situation where how people say that you're not allowed to date certain people. Like, you're not allowed to date your friends' friends. You're not allowed, if your spouse dies, like how much time should come about, between you finding new love, and what happens if the person that you were already in love with, or that you fall in love with, is somebody that you already knew, you already admired, and you want to give it a try. Like, are you not entitled to have happiness based on other people's criteria for your life? And it was family secrets came out. Black folks know they be having some stuff hidden in the dark. So there were some things that came out on both sides. It also dealt with the images that we put forth before other people. And not like, do we ever really know a person, or do we just know the person that they present? Because this whole thing really started because he wanted to tell her things about his past that he had never shared with her. He thought that this was the right time to do it. So, very complex book. Lot of issues going on, and I just think it was a good book, and I wanted to come and talk to y'all about it. So that's it for me. If you read the book, let's get the conversation going in the comments so we can talk about it. Rate the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and until the next time, I shall talk to you guys later. Bye bye.